I'll just take it like if I give you a story, for example, like in primary school, for example, um, some of like the black kids that I went to school with, like parents even, for example, their older sibling would have to come because the parents can't speak the language. So it's just little things like that where, you
Mm.
know, like the parents don't really know what's going on with your education. And when it's time to put pressure on the child to, you know, take education serious, it's too late because they didn't get the grades
Mm.
in the younger
Mm.
years. And the education system, from what I remember in Germany, anyways, after primary school, they separate them. So they have like the normal secondary school. Then they have this thing called gymnasium where I would say like the smart student goes to, and they have this other thing called Sonderschule. And if you go to that school, you're basically stuck in the system. And a lot of parents don't understand that like once you're in that system, in that
Mm.
school, it's hard to get out. And
Wow.
so many of like black kids ended up there when they didn't need to. Like if their parents just applied themselves a bit more and just understood what was going on in the child's education,
Mm.
um, they wouldn't have been there. So that's like where it begins. And then obviously we get to the older ages, the parents are just not involved as much. That's what my parents probably wouldn't have been involved if we still stayed here
Mm.
because my mum didn't really speak the language
Mm.
too well. My dad did, but he was always
Wow.
working. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it stems from. Like,
That is deep.
yeah, yeah,
That is deep. That's a deeply rooted issue.
yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I think it comes from the integration. Like,
Mm.
if our parents would have integrated themselves properly and understood every single aspect of the child's life, things would have been a bit different.
Mm.
And obviously, there's still an element of um, racism.
Mm. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
um, whether it's like vivid racism or systematic is there, and that's something I think we'll have to gonna battle with for a long
Mm.
time. But we can make it hard for them. We
Mm.
can be let's not make it easy for them
Mm.
to be systematically racist per
Mm.
se. Yeah, yeah.
When you say make it hard for them, what do you mean?
Like so, if we just applied ourselves like as a people, um, I think yeah, then we give them more of a choice. Like it's easier now. It would have been easier then to pick someone else over us
Mm.
because let's say the grades were better, for example. But if we just applied ourselves a bit more
Mm.
from the beginning
Mm.
and just like kind of put that into our innate like nature to always try our best, like in education, our parents pushing us from the beginning to the end.
Mm.
I think then the playing field would have been a bit more level.
Mm.
In my humble opinion,
Mm.
obviously. Yeah, yeah.
That's very interesting. I've never actually thought about that perspective. This is why this podcast is good for me. Because you're right. I mean, if your parents can't speak the language and they're not able to properly sit down and have a conversation with your the people who are educating you, how
Mm,
do they know what level of education you have or how well you're doing or even what progress you're making? And
mm,
that will definitely affect you moving forward, especially in a society like Germany where I think education in terms of career is very important, not as
mm,
much as the UK. The UK, I used to work for Apple in the UK, and there were people in my team who didn't go to university.
mm.
See what I'm saying? So it's like kind of like the UK is more about your skill and your interpersonal relationships that you
Mm.
can build. Where I feel like Germany education is very important.
Yeah,
So
I think there's a structure to everything in
yeah,
Germany. Germans are very like, this is this way, this is how it's gonna be, this is what you have to do to get
mm,
there, and they don't budge in
mm,
any way, shape, or form. So, yeah.
that's very interesting. Um, so um, taking that in, what would be your advice to a younger person who is obviously who hasn't got the people to aspire to?
Mm.
What would be your advice to them? Let's say they are already in the system, they're already in the education. Your parents probably are the kind of parents you're speaking about that don't really speak the
Mm.
language. What do they do?
Mm. I think the first point is just to make sure that you yourself as a person always apply yourself,
Mm.
always take education very, very serious, and maybe look for people likewise, someone that you can bounce off, someone you can, exchange ideas with,
Mhm.
keep motivated, and yeah, man, like your circle needs to be a motivating circle. I think that's very important as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's what I would say.